Hello everyone, welcome back to Spinning Iris and happy Victober. This is going to be my Victober roundup where I talk about everything that I did. I didn't get to do as much as I would have liked, but I did get to do a bit. I of course did the Stitch and Listen along with the Star-Crossed Stitchers to Thomas Hardy's To On a Tower, which I really loved, but how can you not? I'm sure there's people out there who don't, but I loved it. Ooh, this thing's hot. Of course, did my rewatch of Charles Dickens' Little Dorrit, the BBC miniseries, which is a lot of fun. Highly recommended. Also highly recommend the book. It's a lot of fun too. It's not nearly as depressing as you might think it is. Maybe. Maybe a little bit. I also, of course, listened to the abridged audio book of Bram Stoker's Dracula, narrated by Richard E. Grant. Again, great narration. Hate the fact that it's abridged. I only managed to read 2 of Oscar Wilde's letters, 2 that he wrote while he was in prison. Very sad. Had Stephen Fry's voice in my head while reading it. He did play Oscar Wilde in a movie. It's a pretty decent movie. I had planned on reading Dick Profundus, but it's about the size of a novella, and just didn't have the time to do it. Another one I didn't get to do this particular year was Far From the Madding Crowd. I had planned on reading it, but after finishing To On a Tower, it was such an emotional ride that I just decided to save Far From the Madding Crowd for next year, or if I am suddenly in the mood to read some Thomas Hardy. Now, Wuthering Heights. Now, I know for some people, this is a favorite book for them, and for some people, this is a book that they absolutely positively hate. I'm kind of in the middle. I can see why people would love this book. I can also see why some people would absolutely positively hate this book. Most of the characters are, well, by my modern standards, are cruel, bad, I guess hateful is a good word. Not the sort of, if you're used to reading the more classical works as opposed to the more romantic, it's, and I'm speaking not from a literature genre wording for classical and romantic. I'm thinking more of the musical classification, which is different. Anyway, it is beautifully written. Even the parts that are unintelligible from the character Joseph, who is probably one of the most annoying characters. I think he's supposed to be annoying. It was rough getting through his dialogue because it is written in dialect, and if you're not used to reading in a particular dialect, especially one that's so, I guess, rural English, it can be trying at times. Even speaking it out loud didn't help. But yeah, this is, I guess you'd say it's from the Romantic period, but it is not a romantic book. It is definitely Gothic in nature. There is nothing romantic about any of the relationships in this book until you get to the very end. And even then that's just a little ewy, but then I've always found that cousins marrying cousins to be a little icky. But yeah, there's points throughout here where I absolutely hated every character, and there are points where I felt definitely sympathy for characters. Hareton is probably the one I felt the most sympathy for, considering he was born into a horrible situation, got a little bit of care when he was a baby, and then was basically abandoned to be raised by someone who hates him. And then of course Ellen Dean, who's just trying to be the good person that she is, and at every turn is faced with the horrible tragedies and neuroses of the characters around her. Heathcliff, man, he's not a sympathetic character at all. I did not like him one bit. As a villain, he's a wonderful villain. As a protagonist, there's nothing likable about that. Even original Catherine, wow, what a complicated character there. I'm thinking she might have had some psychological disorder that she was dealing with. I also kind of forgot that, again, that back in the day they didn't talk about pregnancy, because it's one minute she's sitting in a parlor talking with Heathcliff, and the next thing you know, she's birthing a child. Okay. But then again, that would also make sense for some of her odd behavior toward the end of the first half of the book. I'm wondering if she had developed some high blood pressure. That might have accounted for her not making it to the end. And young Catherine. Talk about a spoiled child. Not quite as wild as her mother, but definitely more likable. Then, of course, she was raised by Ellen instead of her mother. And who else? Hindley. Yeah, not too sympathetic a character there either. Yeah, no, I didn't like him at all either. Another nice villain, of course. One of the impressions I got about halfway through this was this reminds me of Beauty and the Beast a little bit. A very disturbed, fractured, and twisted Beauty and the Beast story. You've got Mr. Earnshaw going out into society to do business, leaving behind his wild, spoiled, privileged children and their sort of adopted sister who's just happy to get what she has. And instead of bringing home gifts and sending off his favorite child to live with the Beast, he brings the Beast home. Yeah. And instead of forming a bond with the good character, the Beast forms a bond with one of the spoiled characters. Yeah. I also got a strange... it also felt a little bit like Hamlet in the whole revenge thing. A sort of unfulfilled revenge. Well, a mostly unfulfilled revenge. But I didn't hate it. But I will not count this as one of my favorite books. It is definitely an interesting read. If I'm in the mood, I might read it again. I don't plan on doing that anytime soon, though. It kind of messed with my dreams a little bit. On the one hand, that can be a good thing, but the last time that happened, I had nightmares for months. It's the woman in black, by the way. There are moments where I can see where a casual observer might think that this is a romance story. It's not. There are romance elements, but it's not. It's more like a Romeo and Juliet style of romance. It's not necessarily star-crossed, but very tragic, you know? In fact, I think the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine was not entirely healthy. I cannot express it, but surely you and every body have a notion that there is, or should be, an existence of yours beyond you. What were the use of my creation if I were entirely contained here? My great miseries in this world have been Heathcliff's miseries, and I watched and felt each from the beginning. My great thought in living is himself. If all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be, and if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. I should not seem part of it. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the trees. Time will change it. I am well aware as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight, but necessary. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind, not as a pleasure, any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being, so don't talk of our separation again, as impracticable, and yeah, that's absolutely not healthy, and I'm wondering about what kind of neurosis that would be. I'm wondering if any psychiatrists or psychologists or anyone in the mental health industry has actually dived into this book to see what kind of disorder that is. Have any ideas? Feel free to comment. But yeah, didn't absolutely love it. Didn't hate it. It's beautifully written. And can't wait to read something else from the Brontë sisters. Might have to find an actual copy of Jane Eyre and not my strange pocketbook copy over there. Tea break. Cold. And finally, A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Didn't get to Hound of the Baskervilles, but I can save that for another day. Yeah, this was very interesting. I have seen, of course, the BBC's Sherlock adaptation, A Study in Pink. It was very interesting to see how they translate it from this to modern era. And how they played with the revenge angle and then dismissed it. And how in here they assume there's a character named Rachel and there isn't. And in Sherlock there is a Rachel connection and a American tourist red herring. Nice touch. But the motives for the killing, different. I was quite surprised when halfway through the book the murderer is in handcuffs. And then in the next part, we get a Western. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a Western in the middle of his mystery novel. That was quite a surprise. A very Victorian Western, of course. Complete with a revenge story. Rache. Yeah, I think I mentioned before that Sherlock Holmes comes off as rather bouncy in this, and he does. And what's funny is if you put everyone who's ever played Sherlock Holmes and smashed them together, you'd get the perfect amalgamation of how he appears in this. I guess. You've got Holmes being brilliant, and you've got Watson being surprised and amazed. And then, of course, this is completely different, but it's really fun seeing the costumes, and I took a little more notice of what they put on Irene Adler's character. Everything from her trousers to her bright red bustle. Yeah, lots of little details in there. Anyway, that's it for Victober for me. I'm going to jump back into The Night Circus and Glory in Death. Pick up where I left off with those. Shouldn't be too hard. I'll have to wait and see what I want to do next month. Maybe I'll write. Right, thank you for watching. Thank you for following along. If you have. If you haven't, the videos are there. Feel free to watch. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.